Hey chat, today we're going to talk about displaced hatred. This came up in kind of an interesting way. I was driving with my wife and she basically asked me to diagnose characters from Harry Potter. And she asked me, what is Severus Snape's problem? And I said, his basic problem is that he's got a bunch of displaced hatred towards Harry. Now, what does that mean? If we read Harry Potter, what we see is that from the get-go, there's no way that Harry can win with Snape. This is why we hate Snape so much, because Harry's not doing anything wrong. He's just like being himself. And even if he's doing something that's like exceptional or good, that just makes Snape hate him even more. And this connects with us so viscerally because there's a very good chance that someone is displacing their hatred on you, which is why we can empathize with Harry so much. There are so many people in our lives who treat us unfairly. And the more insidious thing is that there's a good chance that we have displaced hatred towards other people. So if we want to understand, first of all, how to deal with the hatred that other people send our way, or if you feel incredibly angry and persistently angry, no matter what happens, displaced hatred is the answer. So let's take a closer look at Snape to understand a little bit about what's going on. So what does Snape want more than anything else? He's in love with Lily. And what he wants, there's this one person who's really kind to him. This is Lily Potter, and he loves her so much. And he loved her. And then you learn, spoilers, I guess it's been years and years, that he loved her. And at the end of book 7, I guess you learn that he's actually the hero. And the other really interesting thing is that Snape also hates James Potter. And that sort of makes sense at the beginning, right? Because James bullied him. They had an antagonistic relationship. But then as Dumbledore says, and this is also kind of a sucker punch, it's a really great spoil, feels really good to read, which is, why does Snape hate James so much? Because James did something that Snape could never forgive, which was save his life. Now, that's kind of weird, right? Because if someone saves our life, we'd think the natural reaction to that is gratitude. Oh, thank you so much for saving my life. I really appreciate it. Now we can be best buds. But no, Snape hates him instead, which also lets us hate Snape, because what kind of asshole hates people for saving their lives? But the answer, if you want to understand how all this stuff actually happens and why it feels so weird, it comes down to displaced hatred. So Snape loves Lily, and Lily is friends with Snape, but then Lily does something that is truly unforgivable. She chooses to go out with James. She chooses to have children with James, right? Or at least a child. And so this is the thing that actually hurts the most. So imagine you're deeply, deeply in love. Imagine you're ostracized, and there's one person who is kind to you, one person who you fall in love with, one person who has beautiful eyes and all this other kind of stuff and is kind and wonderful and amazing, right? This is the apple of your eye. This is the person that you're in love with. And if that person chooses to date, marry, and have children with your mortal enemy, how would you feel towards that person? Immense hate, an immense sense of betrayal. But this is how displaced hatred works. Anytime we have these powerful feelings of hate towards someone that we really love, someone that we really feel positive towards, those two things, that incongruency doesn't work in our mind. Our mind cannot love and hate someone at the same time. So what does it do? I've already convinced myself that I've loved her. She's amazing, all this kind of stuff. So it takes that hatred and it starts putting it other places. We start to project that hatred onto James, and then we start to project that hatred onto Harry. Because what does Snape see every time he looks at Harry? He sees Lily's eyes, right? Outside, looks like his dad, has curly hair like his dad, looks a lot like his dad, except for his eyes. So every time Snape sees Harry, he sees evidence of Lily's choice to not have children with him. Okay? So, how does this relate to our regular lives? So this is something that I see all the time in therapy. One of my, wonderful mentors once told me that if a patient comes in and talks to you about a particular parent, complains about a parent, the real money is the parent that they don't talk about. That's really where the healing happens. Now, this may sound kind of confusing because the classic kind of case of this is patient walks in and says, hey, I have one parent, I have a history of trauma. I'll ask them hey, do you have any history of trauma abuse? They'll say, yeah, I had a dad who's an alcoholic, and dad used to come home, used to drink a lot, used to yell. And so then we're oh, I'm a third year psychiatry resident. So I'm oh, cool, trauma. I found the trauma. Let's talk about the trauma. Let's talk about, oh, your dad was so bad and he drank so much and he would yell at you and oh my God, it hurts. hurts. We do this kind of therapy for about a year and a half, and it doesn't seem to be getting anywhere. And so I go to the supervisor and I tell him, like, hey, what's going on in this situation? My supervisor says, it's the parent that they don't talk about. That's the real problem. Relationships have never been easy. Anytime you interact with someone, you're dealing with their unique soup of emotions, expectations, and even traumatic baggage. And the fact that we're all texting now and dating apps are a thing is not making things easier. That's why we developed a coaching program to help our community with modern relationship problems. Working with a coach can help you build skills like setting boundaries, communicating effectively, and navigating conflict. So if y'all are struggling with your relationships, check out the link in the description below. And this really confused me because when I talk about their other parent, when I talk about mom, they're like, yeah, mom was really nice to me. Mom really took care of me. My dad would yell. And, my mom, like, this was a real story. So, for example, one time I got a B on a test. So dad kicked me out of the house and told me I need to sleep outside. And until I learn the value of my job is to study. And if I get a B, that means I'm not doing my job and I don't deserve what they provide for me, which is a home. So after my dad passed out from drinking too much, my mom came outside, gave me a sleeping bag so I didn't have to sleep in the grass. And so in this scenario, dad is a bad guy and mom is a good guy. So we have a lot of love, we have a lot of appreciation for mom. And this is where the displaced hatred starts. Because deep down, what this person is really holding on to, why they really can't get better, is because they have an immense amount of anger towards mom. Why? Because mom didn't protect me. Here we are, dad is yelling, dad is drinking, and what does mom do? Mom is standing over on the side. Mom is not saying anything. Mom lets dad kick me out of the house. Mom waits till dad is asleep and then comes and tries to help me, right? So if you sort of look at that, it's so hard. How can you be angry with your mom? Because, hey, and this is where we come up with all the excuses, right? Because she's in an abusive relationship too. She's married to this terrible person. This is something that I hear so much from patients. When the parent who's the quote unquote problem did the best that they could. We make excuses for them. So now we create this situation where there's an immense amount of anger towards mom because viscerally, mom is supposed to be my protector. That's what I tell myself, right? Mom is the protector. But what kind of protector lets you get kicked out of your own home, right? It's so cognitively incongruent that it creates a lot of problems. And then what we do is we take that hatred and we push it out onto someone else because we can't have that hatred towards mom. So this becomes important in your life because, first of all, there's a really good chance that someone is displacing hatred onto you. And what does this look like? This is why this is so confusing, because you may not be doing anything wrong, but some people just have a beef against you no matter what you do. And you're like, hey, I just showed up here yesterday. I didn't do anything wrong. Why do you have an issue with me? And the reason is because they don't actually have an issue with you. That's why it's so confusing for you. They have an issue with someone else that they are not allowed to be mad at. So this oftentimes is coworkers getting blamed when you have an asshole boss. So here's worker number one. Here's your coworker. Coworker is really angry with you, but the reason they're angry with you is because the boss is creating a situation in which this person is suffering. But I can't get angry at the boss. So instead, I get angry with you. So why is this important to understand? Because after all, this is a problem that's with your coworker and with your boss. Your boss is not doing a good job. Your coworker is blaming you. So here's the reason it's important. So many of my patients try really hard to fix this situation. They try to kill their coworker with kindness. They try to be really nice. They try to be accommodating. They try to listen, and it's actually a complete waste of time. There's nothing you can do to actually win in this situation because you can't fix a problem that is not of your making. So once you understand that displaced hatred is in the picture, stop trying to fix things. So make a certain effort to make sure that you're not doing anything wrong, but then don't bend over backwards trying to fix something that actually isn't your fault. There's so many people that I've worked with that go on taking responsibility for things that are not actually theirs to take responsibility for. In doing so, they drain their own mental, they waste their energy, they try to become accommodating to people who don't deserve it, and it becomes a black hole of your effort that is never going to work. The second reason this becomes important is because there's a really good chance that if you are angry in your life, if you are persistently angry, or you just have a ton of anger that never seems to go away, or no matter what you do, there's a certain person in your life and you absolutely loathe them. They are your nemesis. Now, if this person has been a real asshole to you, then maybe they deserve it. But chances are there's a good amount of displaced hatred. So if you have a preference for one parent over another parent, if your parents have a preference for one sibling over another sibling, there's a really good chance that there's displaced hatred. Now, what do you do about this? This is where there's one really important question, which is where I start with all of my patients who have displaced hatred. Who is the person that you are not allowed to be angry with? So there's someone in your life who you love a lot, who you appreciate a lot, but because that is so cognitively dissociative, you can't actually feel hatred towards them. So if you want to let go of that anger, the best way to do it is to find the people in your life who you love and you appreciate and ask yourself, what did this person do to piss me off? What did this person do to let me down? What is the anger that I feel towards this person? And the beautiful thing about walking down that road of self-exploration is that is how you let go of a ton of anger. So I'll leave y'all with one really simple example. So I've had the privilege of working with a lot of people who would describe themselves as incels or black pillars or whatever. And oftentimes these people will have an immense amount of anger towards women. And this is sort of like this weird cognitive bias thing, just like Snape, because it's not like women have like gone out of their way to be incredibly cruel. Some women may have done things like that, but most women were just living their own lives, maybe said no when they asked them out, maybe set some kind of boundaries, maybe were absorbed in their own life. And so this person felt neglected, this person didn't feel seen, but there's an immense amount of anger. So where is this displaced hatred coming from? Oftentimes, this is a displacement of hatred towards one of two places. One is that there was one particular girl or woman in their life that they had a lot of positive feelings for. It's actually just like Snape. In some ways, like Snape is the original incel, right? Because now that Lily decided to have James, it's not like we see Snape dating anyone or engaging in any kind of romantic relationships, wears all black, is kind of black-pilled, right? So oftentimes there's one person, the kindest woman in their life, the kindest, like there was this girl in high school or something like that, and they have an immense amount of hatred because that person grew up. That person moved on, and they hate that person so much. There's so much cognitive dissonance around hating the one woman that they met that they end up displacing that hatred onto an entire gender of people. And then this is the second thing, which is that oftentimes their hatred is actually directed towards themselves. And we see that incels have immense self-esteem problems. The problem is that if you sit there and blame yourself, that actually doesn't help. So if you sit there and you have an immense amount of self-loathing, that it's at the top of your psychology, you're sitting there, you're beating yourself up every single day, that sort of turns into depression. Freud said that anger directed against the self is the source of depression. And so when we get really angry towards ourselves, we start to become depressed, and depression leads to inaction. Right? Now I'm sad, now I'm crying, now I'm not getting out of bed. How does that fix my situation? So when we have an immense amount of self-loathing, that does not help us solve the problem. So instead, what do? We take that anger, we take that self-loathing, and we direct it outward. Because once I get pissed at someone else, then I need to rise up, right? I need to get justice. I need to fix my situation. This is unfair, like, So then what happens is anger turned against the self will turn into depression, will turn into inaction. So once we start directing it out towards women, then we will sort of be motivated to act outside of us. And in the case of incels, unfortunately, sometimes that can come with catastrophic consequences. Hey y'all, hope you enjoyed today's video. We talk about a bunch of topics like this on the channel, so be sure to subscribe for more. If you're already subscribed, GG, and we'll see you in chat.